Synopsis of the books of the Bible. Major Prophets. Ezekiel. By JND Darby. Chapter 16. Jerusalem justly condemned and humbled by Samaria and Sodom, Jehovah's sovereign grace. In reading Ezekiel 16, it must be remembered that Jerusalem is the subject and not Israel. Moreover, the subject treated of is not redemption, but God's dealings. He had caused to live, he had cleansed, ornamented, and anointed, that which was in misery and devoid of beauty. But Jerusalem had used all that Jehovah had given her in the service of her idols, and also to purchase the succor and the favor of the Egyptians and the Assyrians. She has had no idea of independence and of standing alone, leaning on Jehovah. She should be judged as an adulterous woman. Jehovah would bring against her those whom she had sought. Nevertheless, filled with pride, she would hear nothing of Samaria or of Sodom, names which Jehovah now uses to humble her. She was even more worthless than those whom she must atone for her sisters, in spite of her pride. Jerusalem being thus justly condemned and humbled, God will yet act in full grace towards her and will re-establish her, remembering his love and his covenant. She will never be restored on the former ground, any more than Samaria or Sodom, and the grace that will be exercised towards her shall suffice to bring them back also, namely, the sovereign grace of redemption and pardon, which is by no means the covenant of Jerusalem under the law. With Jerusalem, Jehovah will also establish a special covenant, and her two sisters shall be given her for daughters. Her mouth shall be shut at the thought of all the grace of God who shall have pardoned her. The 55th verse is absolute and perpetual. The promise, in verse 60, is on entirely new ground. Samaria, Sodom, Jerusalem, go together in judgment, but sovereign grace has its own way and time, and thus all three might be and would be restored, but Jehovah would establish his covenant with Jerusalem. The free unconditional covenant of promise would be made good to Jerusalem. Ezekiel 16 verse 8.